In this episode of How Expensive Is It?, we're going to take a look at exceptions. I remember years ago as a junior programmer, I was reading a blog post about exceptions, and in the comments of that post, a very old, angry programmer was lecturing everybody about how expensive exceptions were. That always stuck with me, but I never really tested it, so I thought it's time to check it out, see how expensive they are. And to do that, I'm going to use some benchmarking and compare it to other operations, such as just returning a value, creating something with reflection, and things like that. If you haven't seen benchmark.net, it's pretty simple. We've got a line here which runs some benchmarks, and they are in this class called exception tester. So you can see the benchmarks here are those ones which have the benchmark attribute above it, and they're just calling normal methods below which are doing the real work. So the first one is the important one that we really want to test, throwing an exception. We're just catching it and moving on. The next one is reading a value in from a file. So that's a bit of I/O there, which is usually very expensive. Next one's just some string concatenation. Should be reasonably quick, but there's a little bit of memory juggling in there with the strings. Next one's just, this one should be the fastest. We're literally just assigning a variable and returning it. And the next one is using reflection. People say reflection is slow, so this will be interesting. It's creating an object using reflection and returning that. And the final one, again, we're using reflection. This time we are retrieving a value from an object using reflection. So let's get after it. What we need to do is create a release build and then run that. And what I like to do is open up the Windows terminal, because you can have two tabs open, and this tab here you can see I've got open to the directory where the binaries get created, and the other one is the directory where the actual csproj file lives. So that being the case, I'll just quickly do a clean, and then I'll now do a release build. And now I can move over to the other tab and run it. Now, these performance benchmarks take ages, so I'm going to use the wizardry of fast forwarding to get to the end. And we're at the end now, and what we can see here is we get this results grid, and I'll go straight to the one which throws an exception, which is this one here, 4,946 nanoseconds, and you can see it's almost 10 times slower than the one that creates an object using reflection. And the other reflection operation, getting a value from a property, then we have the string concats. Obviously the file read with the disk I/O is the slowest, no surprise there. And obviously the one that just returns a value straight away is lightning fast. In fact, it doesn't even create a Gen 0 garbage collection. So now we know exceptions are expensive. What we do with that information, well, that's up to us as programmers. Sometimes throwing an exception is absolutely the right thing to do, but in other cases, we may be able to structure our code such that an exception is not required. And one example of that, I'll refer you to this article, which sets out how you can go about that using a functional programming technique called discriminated unions. I hope this video has been helpful to you. If so, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.